All right, boys and girls, let's jump right into today's video because today we plan to use Rust-Oleum Rust Dissolver. And I've never used this product before. Now, I did read the directions, and I'll be honest with you. With the exception of, say, Gary, not a lot of my 6 viewers are my age. But if you are, put your bifocals on, get your reading glasses out, something like that. Because them directions are not written very large. And they put the instructions below the important stuff, which I guess is important. But what I get out of the directions is apply it over 70 degrees. That ain't a problem up in here. And keep it wet the whole time that you're putting it on or letting it do its magic, whatever. When the rust is dissolved, according to this, wipe it down, rinse it off with a wet rag or just hose it down, whatever. I don't know. But that's what I got out of this. Now, I will say the directions, the actual directions, are down here, and they're sort of confusing because they explain the directions for each individual type of item you can use it on. So metal is what I just described, and then porcelain, you would use it differently, which confuses me because I had no idea that porcelain could rust. Each different type of thing you would use it on is explained in the directions, and it gets confusing fast. Because we all know everybody that buys this gonna use it on metal. Anyway, let's try this stuff out on the stupid truck, see if we can get rid of the rust in the floorboard, see how well it works, or even if it works. I don't know. We'll find out, and we'll find out together. All right, I got a paintbrush to paint it on with. I got a bucket of water. Still got to come up with a couple of rags. We're going to put it in this because this brush is not going to fit into that lid. So this lid is apparently adult proof. You got to push down on it in order to get it to open. And then it's got a seal to keep it from leaking all over the parts house. And let's see what we can do with it. Hopefully without making a mess. It does have a pungent odor to it. It's green, looks a lot like Ospo, which I used in the past. And let's see what we can do with it. Alright, this stuff contains phosphoric acid. So for that reason, we're going to do this whole thing in sections. We'll start with the tunnel, and then we'll stay. We'll move to this side, and we're probably going to do this top section before we try to tackle this down here, the floorboard, due to the fact that I'm probably going to have to lean into this floorboard in order to get all that. And phosphoric acid is very irritant to skin, and God forbid you get it into your eyes. So you might want to wear some safety glasses. Of course, I'm not a good role model when it comes to safety precautions. You can tell that by every video that I make using a grinder that has a cutoff wheel on it, because yeah, there's no guard. Now this stuff says don't let it dry on painted metal, which is going to be extremely difficult in this case. I don't know if it's going to work or not for what I want it to do, but as long as it keeps the metal, or gets the rust off the metal, I'll be happy. Now the directions say to keep it wet, so I'm gonna try that. Try to keep it wet, see how it works. It looks a lot better already, most especially in these areas like the tunnel here that was newer metal. It just had surface rust. That rust has already come off, or at least dissolved out of the way. I don't know what you'd call it. Other areas like down here where the metal wasn't quite as new are taking a little longer. Plus, let's be honest, I beat the mess out of that metal with a hammer trying to get it into the shape that I wanted it to be. So, I'm sure that had something to do with the rust formulation. So, let's give this a few minutes to sit. We'll make sure whether or not it needs another coat. Please hold. I'll be right back with you. Alright, I'm back. Did you miss me? Might want to reload. Alright, I do not remember if I mentioned the fan. Somewhere on the directions I saw the words well ventilated area, so I turned my big 3-foot exhaust fan on. Now, this has been sitting for about 15 minutes. I checked on it every so often to make sure it was still wet. And then I went ahead and did these weld joints down this intrusion in the floor. I did not do the rest of that piece of metal, but I'm going to go ahead and do that now. Now, let's take a closer look. I am super happy with the way that metal turned out. Now, granted, that was clean metal when it went on. It was scrubbed down. It did have surface rust on it, but I scrubbed it down with a wire brush, and that brought it back to at least where it was before, if not better. Now this is the original rusted old floorboard, so I can't expect that to go away by itself. This right here, just don't look at that, because that's, well, that's body drop stuff that should have been done better. But this is, of course, now all I've done here is the joints until just then, and I did the rest of the metal. We'll see how that works out. But I'm supposed to wipe this down with water. Now if I do that, then that means that all of this can't be wire brushed right now, so that might have to come tomorrow. But I want to do all of this section first before we get into this. Well, I'm guessing that ain't gonna happen, because here I am getting ready to do the rest of this floor section on the driver's side. So, yay. We're just going to paint this on. Now, I did let that sit for 15 minutes, like I said, but I don't think that section over there in the transmission tunnel, I don't think it took 15 minutes. I think it was done within 5 or 10, so that's sort of impressive. Now, the idea of don't let this dry on top of paint, that's useless due to the fact that, how do you say, the paint and the rust are pretty much in the same spots. I guess I was supposed to remove the rust from the paint off the metal before I did this, but I don't know. Actually, I do, but because that would just makes more sense. But anyway, this is where we're at. This is what we're doing. If it's wrong, you're in the right spot. Welcome to the Wrong Way Garage. Shoot, let's go ahead and go over to the other side. Once that top section was, I don't know if you can see it, but once the top section was done, there wasn't a lot of leaning over, so it worked out well. It turned almost a primer gray kind of color when it dried and actually got dry. That's probably because I didn't rinse it. Oop. There's part of a grenaded cutoff wheel. Speaking of which, I know I made the comment I'm not a big advocate of, how do you say, PPE or whatever. I don't use a guard on my grinder that I use my cutoff wheel on and what have you. But I promise you, if you see me with a grinder of any type, I've got a daggone pair of safety glasses on, because that's just too important not to care about. And I encourage everybody to do the same thing. Yeah, I got rust coming up through the paint, so I don't know how I'm supposed to keep it from drying on the paint. Should have pulled the paint off. We all learn in our own little way. And I've got to do the area directly underneath where the camera's sitting. I will say that I do appreciate the fact that this is water-based. So when it's all said and done, you just rinse it off or wipe it down. That's why we got a bucket of water. So we'll find out. Like I say, I've never used this, but I do know that this area looks absolutely wonderful. This looks better, and I bet you once I rinse it down and let it dry overnight, come tomorrow I can clean that up with a wire wheel, and I bet that's gonna look way better than it does right now. Just put the first coat on that section right there. Of course, that over there is still soaking wet, so we're gonna let that sit for about 15 minutes. The directions say to rinse it all off. With a rag and water or what have you. We're going to rinse this down. And then we're going to talk about this product. Alright, we got everything rinsed down, but we're going to wait about an hour before we dry it up and what have you. See how this magic works. Now, I will point out that the reason we're going to give it an hour before I dry it up with a towel is A, I got to go find a towel that I won't get murdered for using on this purpose. And B, this stuff is water soluble, which means all I've really done is diluted the chemicals, and there's half as much phosphoric acid in it and all that type thing. So I really need to let it sit in those spots that are low, because those are the spots with the most rust, and therefore let it do its thing even though it is technically watered down. So I found a couple of towels. Let's get this dried up. And let's see what it looks like in the morning. I mean, it looks really good right now, so I can't imagine it's going to look any worse tomorrow morning. All right, so today is tomorrow, which I guess makes you a time traveler. Still doesn't answer the question, though. How soon is now? Because right now we're going to go look at this floorboard, take a wire brush grinder wheel to it, and see what we can do with it. All right, let's shine a little light on this situation. Ugh. All right, well, I guess that's what they would call flash rust. I don't know if it is caused by the fact that we rinsed that down and then didn't clean it up right away, or if it was caused by me not drying it out good enough or whatever. But that's what it looks like the next morning. Looks like most of the rust is gone, but yeah. Let's get a flashlight. I will say this. These areas here were coated with stacked up rust and what have you, and now they're all the way down to the metal. This right here looks like it'll brush off, so once we clean this up with a wire brush, I got the feeling this is going to look 100 times better, because this right here had that caked on rust that we had back here. And overall, this looks great. Let's clean it up with a wire wheel and see what we end up with. Alright, I got a small amount of wire wheeling left to do, but wow, look at this difference. This is night and day compared to before, due to the fact that I took that same wire brush before and tried to clean everything up, but could not get all the rust off. And then you had spots like this where the rust was just built up, and that's another one. It was all built up right here and right here, and using that rust dissolver totally took that back down to a pretty smooth metal. It's just a matter of getting some primer on it, but I do have some wheeling or brushing I got to do to it. That, I assume, is why they say don't let it dry on your paint. That's the bottom of the measuring cup I was holding the product in. And I have absolutely zero complaints about this product. By the way, this is the cup that we used yesterday to paint this stuff on the floor of the truck. I thought I'd... Oh, wow. That's a difference. Figured I'd soak this pair of pliers. They've been rusty to the point that you can't use them. Hope it don't affect the rubberized coating. But this has been sitting out since yesterday, so I don't know. We'll let it soak a little longer and we'll find out. But now that was just to satisfy my own personal curiosity because of what the guy at the auto parts place told me about his grandfather's wrench. I'll find out for my satisfaction. I may or may not share that with you. It just depends on if I remembered to do so. Meanwhile, I love the results of this product. Rust-Oleum Rust Dissolver. You can soak something in it or brush it on and let it sit. And there are tons of uses as far as taking rust off of not just metal, porcelain, stuff like that. So I might have a new go-to product now. I don't know. Especially considering it's $10 cheaper than the OSFO I used to use, and it's available locally, which means I don't have to order it off the internet. Now, for the 6 of you that are still watching, today's song of the day is by the Smiths, and How Soon Is Now? That's the name of the song. How Soon Is Now? Check it out. Probably listen to that song 5 times today. Probably listen to it another 5 before the end of the day. Peace, love, and mini trucks.